Hey, what's going on, YouTuber? So today we're going to be changing the oil on my Fj60. So if you guys are new to Fj60s or 2F motors, you get to see firsthand how to change the oil and how much oil it takes, and you can see what kind of oil I'm using today in my oil change. So what's different about today and this particular oil change is, let me just show you. Now, I know most of you are looking at my parts for this oil change. You're looking at my Fram oil filter, and I get it. Now, I've always stayed away from Fram, but I feel like, well, let's give it a try. And I don't really think that it's gonna, like the old days where Fram is like Harbor Freight. You buy it and use it at your own risk. Well, and I've always had that same mentality as well, and with 2020 I think it's good to open your eyes and see and do some research on your own to see is it really the same. I feel like a lot of products out there, like oil filters, are getting better and better and better. Like oils are getting better and better and better. That's the only way that these companies can compete, is to do R&D. So this is the Fram Ultra Synthetic filter, and the model number for the Fj60 is XG8A. Alright, so one thing I do recommend is that if you guys do go to Walmart to buy this, or whoever carries the Fram, they had two of these on the shelf, and I would highly recommend opening up any filter and make sure the model number matches the filter that you need. Because I've seen in Walmart where another filter was put in place in the same box, so I'm really glad I checked the filter model number before I grabbed it off the shelf and paid for it at the register. Okay, and I've got a couple of bottles here of Mobil 1 Advanced Full Synthetic Motor Oil, and I'm using a 10W30 weight in my truck. These are 10 quarts in total, and what I've been reading here in my 2F repair manual is that this, now you might be thinking, okay, well, this is for an old 72 to 74. Yes, but the 2F motor should be the same in my 83. So this is from my old Fj40 I had and I sold, which is in a whole different video, but the motor is relatively the same. And just looking at the oil capacity here, it's total of 8.5, but 7.5, under 7.5 in the crankcase. So it's going to take probably 8.5 today, because I've let this thing drain overnight. Also, I got to remove the oil filter, so it's going to take the full 8.5 quart. I think it should. So let's take a look and see if it really does take the full 8.5 quart. That's pretty massive for a 6-cylinder motor. So hope you guys will find this particular video helpful on knowing how much oil to put in your Fj60 in a 2F motor. Okay, so let's get started. Alright, so one last thing before we get started here. I do want to note that these Mobil 1 oil, if you buy it at Walmart, these are about $5 to $10 cheaper there than anywhere else for the exact same 5-quart bottle. For example, at O'Reilly, Napa, AutoZone, and Pep Boys. So I went and checked all those places and their prices. These particular bottles are running at $28 to $30 each, okay, for 5 quarts. So that puts you around almost $10 per quart at those places. Well, at Walmart, these were $22 per bottle. So that's a lot of savings there. Walmart in itself, it's much cheaper, folks. And also, this Fram ran me $8, so I'm all in with taxes about under $55. Now, I could have just gone to the Toyota dealer in their service and got an oil change, and that would have cost me, I believe, $89 to $90, just because it takes extra quarts of oil. And then they would have put in just a conventional oil instead of synthetic oil. The synthetic oil would have cost me almost $150 because of the 8.5 quarts it takes, plus the filters and labor. So Toyota, they will rape you all day long. I guarantee that, folks. Trust me. So that's why I do these, my project truck myself. It's cheaper. I don't want anyone else to F it up. If it does gets F'd up, then it's on me. So anyways, then let's take a look at this Fram oil filter. Let me read the back of this for you guys. It says here, dual layer synthetic media provides over 99% dirt trapping efficiency. And 2, silicone anti-drain back valve helps ensure safe engine startup. And proven protection up to 20,000 miles. So all that sounds really good. Again, do your research. I think that Fram has done a little better job, especially in their they have different levels of filters, and this is one of their high-end filters that they have. So without further ado, let's get started. Yeah. So one of the things I like to do here is just crack open the oil fill cap and take that off. Come on. My air hose here was in the way, and what I like to do is take a quick peek down in here and make sure everything looks good. So one of the things I'm looking for when I'm doing this quick inspection is anything that might suggest we have a head gasket leak. And if you have a head gasket leak, you're going to see some white frothy kind of like cappuccino residue on top and under the cap. So here the cap looks really good. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is jump underneath the truck here, and like I said earlier, I've let this thing drain overnight. So there is the fill plug. Let me grab a flashlight. Okay, so like I said earlier, I've let this oil drain overnight, and this drain plug is a 19mm wrench, so you'll need that. And also, before you change oil, you may want to replace the crush washer on here. But this particular washer that's on the drain bowl, it looks like it's rubber, not a steel. So just as a reminder, when I first bought this, so I haven't changed the oil on this thing since I bought this, which is back in January. But then again, I haven't really driven this thing more than, let's say, 500 miles in total. So now that I got it smogged and now I'm driving more on the highway and whatnot, I want to make sure that I got to give this guy a good flush. Okay, and then lastly, we got to remove this oil filter on here, and I'm using a hyper tough oil filter wrench, and this filter's on here so tight that it wouldn't, usually these are hand tight, you shouldn't use a wrench to tighten these things up, but in this particular case, this thing was so tight that I put a huge dent in the top of the oil filter just so I could get a good grip on this thing to turn it. There we go. Now, one thing about these Fj60s is that the filter sits right above the front differential, so it's a good idea to have a box down there to capture all the oil, otherwise it's going to go all over your garage floor. So looking at this thing again, I'm going to go down and reposition my cardboard box real quick. Okay, so now this should come off by hand, and it does. It's turning nicely. So I'm curious to see what kind of oil filter brand they used here previously. So I'm hoping that with me letting this thing drain overnight, there won't be anything coming out of this thing. And then just be careful, yeah, there you go. Flip it 180 on the filter itself, on the filter housing, and do a quick inspection of the oil, and that looks really good. It's not super dark, but then again, color doesn't always paint a perfect picture. But from my School of Hard Knocks, this is a good color. It's just a light brown color. It's not pitch black that I've seen in the past. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recycle this filter properly, I'm going to grab a rag and clean up that drain down below here, and then we'll come back. Okay, so because this is a brand new oil change here, I want to make sure I compare the filters and look at it closely, make sure it's going to fit. So let me grab a little screwdriver here. What I want to see here is if this filter gasket off the old one is same diameter on the new one. Yep, it sure is. So that's a good way to check to make sure it's the right size. And I'm looking at the depth of where the plunger goes in the oil filter housing on the motor itself, and it looks appropriate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a quick dry fitting and make sure it's going to twist on, because this has been a brand new filter which I never used before. Before I get too far into this project, I just want to make sure it's going to all fit. Okay, so let me go do that real quick and I'll come right back. Well, yes, it does fit on here perfectly. One thing that I like to do is when I change the filter is, as I clean up that oil filter housing, is take a quick look and see, make sure there's no debris that I pulled out of from the filter, which was in here. Everything looks good. Another thing I like to do here is just take a little bit of the old oil and just lubricate the new the rubber gasket here. That just helps add a little better seal. Okay, you don't need a whole lot. In fact, let me just use my hands. This is an old trick that my dad taught me when I was a kid, and I never really understood that as a kid, but now as a grown man, work on his own car just like he did, it makes total sense. Okay, so one last thing that I do want to share with you. This is definitely maybe, I don't know where they got this. I'm going to do a little more research on this because it's all in Japanese. Oh wait, hold on a sec here. Caution. Apply thin film of oil to the top surface of the gasket before screwing on. Hey, there you go. So my dad wasn't crazy after all. 2. Screw filter on and tighten 3/4 turn by tool gasket contact maintaining pad. Start engine and check for oil leaks. Wait, screw filter on and tighten 3/4 turn by tool gasket contacts. Huh, okay, so it's asking me to, well, so this one says use the tool, but I'm afraid to use a tool on this one because, as you can see, I don't want to put a big dent on here. A 3/4 turn, that's a lot. So what's nice about the Fram here is I'm gonna use hand tighten, because it's got this textured, like a rhino liner texture on top of the can, so you can use a hand and get a good grip. So I see why back in the day you may have had to use a tool to get a good grip, because this is, very slippery, whereas this one has like a sandpaper paint on top to get a good grip. So I'm not going to use a tool. I don't want to F this up. Okay, so now last thing to do is go down and get the drain plug put in, and we should be good to go. I'm going to just do a quick cleanup and do a quick inspection. Check out my bolts, make sure it's not stripped out, and it's not, looks perfectly square corners. That's a good sign. Inspecting the bolt. Now these, I'm not sure if the end here is metal. Let's take a quick, let's test that. Let's get something really small and see if it grabs. No, unfortunately, this isn't magnetized, which is a bummer, because that would really help to keep any metal shavings contained on this drain plug. Wow. Nope, it's not magnetized. So what I may do actually is, you can buy, I'm gonna go down to Toyota and see if they got a or a newer drain plug. Most drain plugs should be magnetized. From my understanding, all my cars and trucks I've ever owned have had a magnetized drain plug. If not, you can just buy one. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up a little bit here. And again, it's really important to watch your oil. This is why I like to change my oil, and especially if you have an older car, it's good to change your own oil. That way, as you're watching the oil drain, you can see what color it is. That can tell you a lot about what's going on inside your engine. Is it brown, black, brown, white? You know, that's the color you don't want to see, obviously, is filmy white color. That means you got a head gasket leak, and coolant is getting into your motor oil. Okay, so with these drain plugs, I usually don't tighten it too tight. Maybe about a half a turn, there, about like that. It's better to go conservative than over tight, because last thing you want to do is strip out this bolt right here, the threading on this oil pan. Then you got to replace the whole darn thing. Okay, so let's go and fill her up. Alright, so one of the things that's really helpful is when you grab a funnel is to do a good cleanup, of inside the funnel, because you don't know what's been in there last time, and all the debris that will get collected in the funnel will go right into your engine. So what I like to do is take your oily, in this case a paper towel, shop towel that's got oil on it already, and run it through your funnel like this, and just make sure you get that little section nice and clean. Okay, and make sure the inside the funnel is nice and clean, free of any debris. Super important, and that's all there's to it. Okay, let's go put our filter on. It's got a little bit of oil right there. Let me put just a little bit more. Okay. Okay, so one thing I like to do with my oil filters, and also my father taught me this, is put the date that you changed the filter. Today is 2020. I know a lot of people put it on their windshield, but also let me get the mileage on this real quick. 237. Okay, so just like that, 237,000 miles, and today is the 2nd of July. So that's what's imprinted on the filter. Okay, let's go back to the engine. Okay, so I think it goes without saying, you want to be very careful that you don't cross thread this thing. And it's always helpful to go counterclockwise a little bit, because sometimes that will help seat the thread on whatever you're trying to tighten up. Go. There we go. All right. So the question is, how do you know when it's tight? So what I like to do is just turn it until it gets snug, where it takes extra force of my body weight to turn it, and then from there I like to make a quarter turn. So I'm going to go and do that right now. There, that should be plenty. Yep, because I want to make sure I'm able to get that off next time. Okay, and if you tighten it too tight, you will, because these are aluminum threads, you will crush the threads and you will get a leak in there. So that's some reasons why you might get an oil leak, is because whoever changes your oil will tighten this thing way too tight, and it'll thread out your aluminum thread inside of the filter. Okay, so now let's go ahead and dump some oil into the fill hole. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but you can hear the oil inside the engine circulating through the system. I thought at first it was leaking on my floor. Okay, just double checking. It's so loud. Okay. So after the first 5 quarts, just take a quick look, make sure nothing is leaking. And just be mindful that when you took the filter off, a little bit of oil did overspill or spill out. So when you take it for a quick, test drive or fire it up, you might smell or see a little bit of smoke coming out, and that's just your oil burning off that you just spilled taking the filter off. Okay, so that is 5 quarts. Okay, and then almost every oil jugs out there that is, well, in fact, I think almost every oil jug out there that's name brand has a clear section on the side of the container that tells you level of oil in your bottle. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarts, and we need to make sure that we stop at this line right here. So we just need about 3 more quarts, and then we're gonna stop and pull our dipstick, make sure it's the right level. Okay, I got 1 more quart to go. And this takes 8.3, I believe is what it said in the manual. So there's 1, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, so okay, let's take a look at our dipstick. Just right here. Oh yeah, oh look at that. Okay, so on your dipstick here, it should indicate, the level of oil you have. L, oh, hold on a second, let me get in the camera here. Okay, so L means low and F is full. So there's also a line, just a little tiny line in that little waffle shape between L and F. That's where you want to be when it's cold. It's that little line right there. So I don't know if you guys can pick up on the camera. Okay, so let's stick this back in and pull it back out. Whoop, that's what she said. Okay, so we are at just below that F line, so which is fine. We're gonna start this up a little bit, let it warm up. And then we're gonna stop, let it sit for a little bit, and then recheck the level. Okay, so for right now, that thing looks good. I bet you by the time that we let the engine warm up and let the oil circulate, that's gonna be a perfect level. Okay. God, make sure all your tools are out of the engine bay. So one thing I forgot to mention is make sure you check the oil pressure before you drive away. Okay, so now that we are back from our test drive, we took it around the neighborhood and also got on the highway real quick. Drove about, roughly 7 miles to get the engine oil obviously through the system. And now we're going to go ahead and check the fluid level and also check for leaks and see if we have any issues. So let's get to it. Alright guys, so we are back from our test drive. We took it around the neighborhood and got on the highway real quick, got some coffee, and now we're back in the garage just checking our fluid level, make sure that is good, and look for any leaks around the filter and the drain plug. So let's do that. Just be mindful that your engine is hot, so make sure you don't burn yourself. Okay, let's go and pull the dipstick that sits behind your distributor. We're going to wipe it clean so we get a nice, good, accurate reading. I wish they would have made that little dipstick holder a little bit taller, like up here. Okay, let's check this here. Okay, so perfect. So I don't know if you guys recall my last few clips ago about where the level should be. Let me take my glove off so you guys can see. So on the dipstick there is the F. Ow, that's hot. F. And the tiny line right below the F. That's where it should be, and that's exactly where it's at. If you guys can see the shininess on the dipstick. So when I fill this up to F before the test drive, now I'm back from the test drive. I've let the engine settle, cool down just a little bit, and now the fluid is at the right height. So perfect. All right, let's put this bad boy back in and do the rest of our quick inspection. Okay. Okay, grab my shop light, and there is no oil there visually. And then I'm gonna go under here and check, and there's no oil on the drain plug, so that looks fantastic. All right, so that's it. Okay, so this is interesting. After I filled my empty jug, which is 5 quarts full, I had roughly, I would say, a few ounces left in the catch bucket there. So what I'm trying to say here is that I had just over 5 quarts of oil total, I think, in my engine. Now, there might be some residual oil lying around in there somewhere, but at least from draining the oil overnight, it only pulled out just over 5 quarts of oil. And then what's left over is I always have an additional big bucket over there, the orange thing. That's where my excess oil goes if I can't fit all into one jug, because my other jug I had still some left over, so I can't put it back in there. That'd be waste. So anyways, that's how I dispose my oil. I'm gonna take that down to AutoZone here later today. Got my bucket cleaned out, everything looks good, no leaks. So we're looking pretty good so far. Alright guys, so I hope this video was helpful for some of you guys. I know this changing the oil itself is pretty straightforward, but if you've never changed oil in an Fj60 with a 2F motor, it does take a lot more oil than your conventional car nowadays. The old school goes is that, if it's a 6-cylinder, it takes roughly just over 6 quarts of oil. 4 takes over a little bit of 4 quarts of oil. But in this case, it's just over 8 quarts of oil, skosh. So hope that was helpful, getting to know your 2F motor and Fj60 a little bit more. So if you guys have any questions, please leave me those comments down below, and just want to say thanks for supporting my channel. I really appreciate it. So hope you guys will stick around for more content just like this. Anyways, until next time, I will see you guys on the trail.